Well, folks, good day to you one and all, and welcome back to the second year studios here in Velgelegen in the friendly city of Cape Town. Round number 3, MSA GT3 2023. Joining me in the studio, the voice of West Promise Motorsport, Frankie Ennis. Frankie, good day to you, and what an expectation for tonight's race.
Well, it's going to be some great stuff. We've been looking forward to this one for a very long time. And we come to you from Elkhart Lake in Wisconsin, USA, Road America, where the track temperature is 24 degrees. Outside is 26, so that's higher than track temperature. And a 7k an hour wind. And this is going to be a big one. And a big thanks to Canvas Intelligence.
Well, no doubt this is going to be a brilliant race. Because of the fact that we're doing a recording after the fact due to Eskom messing up our production last night, the only person that we're going to be able to see out there for the qualifying is in fact going to be this man, Luke Lukisi, that's out there on circuit. So we won't be able to follow the rest of the guys, but we're going to be able to follow him. So for the next 8 minutes, you're going to have an opportunity to watch Luke Lukisi out there strutting his stuff, and I tell you what, he is really good. But Frankie, let's look at the top runners and who we expect to see up front. Surely the likes of Umpi Swart and Jason Kutsia from the Durant Motorsport side of the world is the kind of guys that we would expect to see in the top 5.
Yeah, you'll expect to find Julian Familiaris in there. You'll expect to find Byron Mitchell part of that lot, together with Luke Lucchesi. I think we'll find Leighton Fourie, Tristan Denobriger will be there, Troy Dolenchek. I think there's going to be a lot of top names. Let's not forget about people like Johan Fourie, people like Zach Foster and Jacques Botha,
Did you
just to
say
name a few.
Tristan de Nobrega? Did you name that one
I
as
did
well?
say Tristan, yes. So that's about what 12 names that I think should be in there. But yeah, there's
And,
more than just 12 of them out there, that's for sure.
and then we haven't even spoke about the likes of Julian Familiares,
No?
Dario Bussi, Byron Mitchell is another one that we haven't actually thought about. And then remember, one of the guys from the Master Series, Raymond Duggan, he's also been doing some very quick lap times recently. And you might find somebody like that, although in against the youngsters, he will probably sweat it out to be in those top positions. But looking at what's happened historically, the top 40 in South Africa going into this series. Let's just go back a step, as we've got a couple of minutes before we're going to go into the race proper. Where did this whole thing start? It was determined that we're going to have a GT3 series under the auspices of MSA Motorsport South Africa, carrying Canvas Intelligence as the main headline sponsor, with 60,000 rands worth of prize money. That happened in 2022. Canvas Intelligence coming through into 2023, and once again we've got 60,000 rands worth of prize money, 30, 20 and 10. That's how it's going to be. Well, that's how it was laid out last year. I think it's going to be pretty similar this year as well. And obviously then it was a case of you need to qualify. So everybody had an opportunity. They put 5 guys on track at a time, gave them a certain amount of time, and the instruction was you may not slipstream. If you are found to be doing a fast lap and getting any form of slipstream, that lap would then be nullified. They took an average of 2 or 3 laps and came up with a lap time per person, and on that basis the top 40 in South Africa were then determined to be the guys that could go through to this. So then the rest of the guys said, okay, so what about us? So Jaco Steyn said, not a problem. Let's have a Pro-Am series. Let's use the Porsche. In fact, what you see out there is a Porsche 911, which has been driven by Luke Lucchesi, and that exact motor car is the car that's being used for the Pro-Am series, that being the Porsche Cup as such. So that is the guys that didn't qualify in the top 40. That is the next 20 odd guys that is in there. So that's the 2 main series that's going down for this year, as we 5.5 minutes into the qualifying session. Luke Lucchesi, that's out there on circuit, you can see he's just put in a purple second and a third sector, so he's definitely going to be going on to a quicker time than that 2-minute 10 in the number 24 911 Porsche. So in addition to that, for those of you that don't normally get to watch iRacing, we've got the West Province Sports and GT Masters Series, which runs on the 3rd and 4th Wednesday of every month. So the first Wednesday will be the MSA GT3, as you see it here, under the auspices of iRSA, iRacing South Africa, under Motorsports South Africa. The Pro-Am Porsche Series, the second Tuesday of every month, and that also being a case of the guys that didn't qualify under the top 40, those guys all getting an opportunity to ride in that series, and then the over 40s getting the opportunity to then go and ride in the Master Series as well. The other series that's going to be starting up, and in fact I think it might even be next week Tuesday already, that is the Clio Cup. Now frankly, the Clio is a series that, well, it's a vehicle that has been added to iRacing recently and has become a pretty popular one at this stage of the fight.
Yeah, isn't it Monday?
Yes, I think you're correct.
Yeah,
That's going
you
to
said
be,
Tuesday.
yeah, I think it's
that should be Monday.
on a Monday. It's going to be, and there'll be, I think, twice a month we'll be having that as well. Then there was also discussion going down as we 3 minutes away, in fact 2 minutes away from the start of the race. There was also a situation where the guys were saying the 6-hour race is a little bit too long. Having the GT3 the Porsche Cup, the Clio, the Master Series as well. It was then determined to take the 6-hour and make a 4-hour race out of that, and then also space that out that it doesn't fall before the event for the GT3s or the Pro-Am, so that the guys can do the necessary practice to make sure they're at the correct level for that one. So there will be 4 of those 4-hour races, and not starting 2 o'clock the afternoon on a Sunday. That'll be starting at 4 o'clock the afternoon on a Sunday afternoon, and 4 of those from now through to the end of November for 2023. So that's the way the whole lot is going to lay itself out. Frankie, with 60,000 rands worth of prize money, it takes a bit of the fun factor out of this. This is getting down to some serious racing.
Yeah, well, you've got some serious race drivers out there, that's for sure. And a lot of these drivers are current and ex-karters. Lots of them race in single-seaters, Formula 1600s. A lot of them are VW Polo Cup drivers. Quite a few of them race in the Super Cup, that's the Super Polo. And a lot of them race in the global touring cars as well. So a lot of these drivers are real-time race drivers, and they find themselves very competitive in iRacing as well. But together with them, you've got the mix of proper iRacers, people like Zak Forster, people like Jacques Botha, people like Willem Botha, just to name a few.
Luke King, I think, is another one.
Luke King, yes, that's another one. That's also a name that we must watch out for in this one. And they mix it up with the guys that do real time. So, yeah, it's very, very competitive.
So there we come to the end of the 10-minute qualifier, and we wait to see the grids come up, that we can see how that one's going to play itself out. So let's go and have a look at the grid out. Oh, Troy Dolenchik, front row of the grid. Yep. And ex-Polo national champion Leighton Ferree alongside him. You just spoke about Luke King. Boom, on the second row of the grid.
Yeah, well, there's quite a few names that we did mention. Jacques Botha, Jason Coetzee, Julian Familiaris, Yuri Swart, Tristan de Nobrega, Byron Mitchell, Luke Lucchese, Johan Ferree, Zak Forster. Man, what a top 6 rows those are.
That is going to be something else to watch. That lot come off the line, the front 6 rows of the grid. And Frankie looking a little bit further.
Yeah, Peter Hubert, that's another name we've got to watch out for. He'll be in there. Jonty Weiss, Graham Stephen, Gerald Fourie, Chasey Herald, Stephen Duplessis. Lovely to see Captain Peter van der Spey back. Yeah. Andy Thomas of Carbs and Coffee, a man that does karting as well. JJ van der Merwe, Leon van Wyk, Dario Busi, Noah Hendricks. The list, Gary, just continues.
Utterly amazing stuff. Sandra Bakari, Janeman Pierce, Raymond Duggan, Duncan Murray, Willem Botha, and then the COC, well, he won't be out on circuit. Everybody except for him will be out there on circuit. So that's how your grid's going to look. For those of you that have just joined us, that is where we're going to be for round number 3. And what an iconic circuit this is.
Yeah, Road America, one of the most famous tracks out there in the USA, together with Road Atlanta, Watkins Glen, and a few others that are out in the USA.
So that's what it looks like at the front end of the grid. Troy Dolenchik and Leighton Ferree. Behind them, Jacques Botha and Jason Coetzee. Jason Coetzee, another one to keep an eye on, no doubt about that. Third row, Julian from the RS and Umpi Swart. Now, Umpi Swart, we know, is very, very good in main circuit racing. He's brilliant in a GTI challenge, and he's also very, very consistent in this form of motorsport as well.
So, the safety car leads them off the line as we look at them from the helicam. A couple of drivers just straggling there on the grid, but they will get moving soon. Peter Hubert, you see him, that is that yellow, I think it's an Audi R8 with the Pennzoil colouring on. Behind him, you see Graham Stephen, Noah Hendricks is in there as well. That lime green Mercedes-Benz, that's JJ van der Merwe, busy working his way through. So, combination of BMWs, Ferraris, Porsches, Audis, and Mercedes-Benz cars. Only 2 Mercs out there. Well, 3 actually. Jacques Botha, Zak Foster, and JJ van der Merwe. And 2 Audis. Peter Hubert, Graham Stephen, Byron Mitchell. That's the 3rd Audi. But the guys have mainly opted for Ferraris and for BMWs.
Oh, what an amazing sight we have out there. Just look what that looks like. Wow, it's like SA Endurance Series times 11-7 when you see all these guys out there on circuit. So up front is going to be all about Troy Dolenchik and Leighton Ferree. Can they dominate this race?
Well, I think so. It's going to be very, very technical. As there's the track map, you see them busy working their way up towards that 90-degree left-hander, and then working their way towards the carousel. That's that right-handed roundabout. You see them busy working their way to right now. Dolenchik in the Sujin Properties BMW. He's the man that's in pole position. Then we've got the other BM there behind him. That is Leighton Ferree. Jacques Botha's there. Luke King. Here comes Umpi Swart, who just saw Jason Kutsia go through. Graham Stephen. Jonty Weiss sits there on his left-hand side as they're busy work their way around the carousel. It's a complete lap that the Porsche Cup safety car takes them around the Road America circuit right here at Elkhart Lake in Wisconsin, USA.
Well, you kind of wonder, does this make the guys calm?
No.
Or does it make them more nervous?
No.
I think it makes them more nervous.
More nervous, obvious.
Oh, look at that. What an amazing view. And for anybody that is motorsport enthusiasts throughout South Africa, if you look down that name list, well, if you don't see a half a dozen guys that you know, and you can roll off the top of your head the titles that these guys have got, then you haven't been in motorsport for a long time, because this is literally the cream of the crop. And remember, the Formula One guys, Jos Verstappen, all of these guys, Max Verstappen should I say, all of these guys, they practice in simulators, obviously slightly more expensive simulators than what some of these guys are in, but they actually use this form of simulation for practice before they go down to a race weekend at a race circuit.
Yeah, quite a few of them do it. As a matter of fact, most of the F1 teams and the IndyCar drivers do exactly the same as well. The NASCAR boys are right in there. They do the same. Right, the safety car will peel off. We have got 1.5 hours of action-packed GT3 Series racing, brought to you by Motorsport South Africa and our main sponsor, Canvas Intelligence, as Dolenchik drops the hammer. And away he goes, racing down into turn number 1. Behind him it's Leighton Ferree. Then Jacques Botha and Luke King are side by side as we ride aboard here with the cam of the helicopter. And Botha's gone. Jacques Botha's gone. And right behind them is Jason Kutsia as this fight makes its way out of turn 2.
Wow, look at that. Troy Dolenchik from Leighton Ferree. Luke King, the man that we missed out initially when we spoke about who's going to be the top guns in this one. Here they're all coming through. Looks like everybody's made it through quite fine. If you look at the track map on the right-hand side, you can actually see that everybody has made it through. There's only the number 30 that has gone off, and that I believe is Jonty Weiss that has gone off track.
Well, I just saw Graham Stephen got sent packing there to his left-hand side. Graham Stephen with that golf-coloured Audi R8, so he is completely out of it, and we're not even halfway through lap number 1. Here they go towards the carousel. Troy Dolenchik sitting out there in P1. Leighton Ferree in that second position. Right behind him is Luke King, Jason Kutsia, Tristan de Nobrega. We'll see if we can get the intervals up for you, and you can see exactly how close these boys are with each other. And yeah, that's all the information that we need for the next hour and a half that you can see there on your screen. There is Luke Lucchesi sitting in that 7th position, 0.2 of a second behind Family Harris there in P6.
Yeah, very, very close he is. And already Troy Dolenchik has up-dusted and disappeared at the front end of the field. He's got himself just a little bit of a gap and just takes the worst of the pressure off. There's Umpi Swart. He's in the middle of that pack. He's the second of the Ferraris out there. You can see he's in the Durant Motorsport colors, and in fact the man right in front of him is his teammate that in terms of the 6 hours, which is now becoming the 4-hour races, Yuri Swart and Byron Mitchell pretty much Linus third.
Zach Foster is the first of the Mercs that sit there behind him. He's 4/10 of a second behind Yuri Umpi Swart. Leighton Fourie sits out there in P2. Dollarcheck just put up the quickest lap there, and he is 1.2 seconds ahead of Fourie. The BMWs are P1, 2, 3, and 4 at this point in time. Then De Nobrega in the Porsche and Familiaris in the Ferrari.
Jason Coetzee coming into play ahead there of Julian Familiaris. In behind that is Luc Lucchesi. So the first two Ferraris and the the first two Porsches and the first Ferrari lying there 5th, 6th and 7th position. But look at that gap up front. Keep an eye on that one. Troy Dolanchik from Leighton Fourie, 1.1 seconds between the two of them. The question now starts to roll. Does Luke King have the pace to be able to run with them? Because he's got that whole queue of cars behind him, and looking back, well, that's his motivation to keep the hammer down.
Yeah, he's going to keep Jason Coetzee in that BMW that is in P4 behind him. He's 6/10 of a second behind Luke King at this point in time, and he's 1.1 is Coetzee ahead of De Nobrega in the Porsche. So through the carousel they go, working their way now through the kink, dropping down to what they call kettle bottoms, then working their way into Canada corner. That's where the leader's going through now, Canada corner. Then he works his way towards turn 13. That left-hander is turn 13A. And then they go towards turn 14. That is the final corner of Road America.
So Julian from the RS is just 3/10 of a second behind Tristan De Nobrega. Tristan De Nobrega is starting to fall back just a little. He's 1.1 seconds off the Jason Coetzee Luke King battle, and you got the same scenario. Well, if it was Formula One, Frankie, you'd look at that, at 204.146. Leighton Fourie, the fastest man out there on this lap, and the fastest lap so far overall, that quicker than Troy Dolanchik. Now, he was just outside of a second. In Formula One terms, that's within a DRS range, which is very, very quick.
Yeah, we've got a DRS train there. If it was Formula One, there is Familiaris, and he's 2/10 of a second behind De Nobrega. And De Nobrega is losing ground to Jason Coetzee. He's 1.2, 1.3 seconds behind Jason Coetzee. And Familiaris is going to have a go. Surely Julian must have a go somewhere. He's right on that back bumper of the De Nobrega Porsche, and coming with Familiaris is Lucchesi and Byron Mitchell.
Yep, there's Luc Lucchesi, Byron Mitchell, the first of the Durant Motorsport cars directly in behind that. His teammate in behind him, Umpi Swart, would never believe that Umpi Swart would be down in 9th position. And I mean, that's not because Umpi's not always a dive up on that inside line, was Byron Mitchell. And he almost made that one stick. You would never think that Umpi Swart would be down in 9th position. But that just shows you how many good quality races there are out there as Umpi goes right onto the back bumper of Byron Mitchell.
Yeah, right on that back bumper of that Audi is Umpi Swart of Durant Motorsport in that Ferrari. Zach Foster is in there as well. He's 7/10 of a second behind him. Then in P11, 2 seconds behind Foster, is the Ferrari of Johan Fourie in that 11th position. There you see him come through. That's Johan in the 46, Jacques Botha. 5 seconds, almost 5 seconds is Botha behind Fourie, and he rounds off the top dozen with a Chase Herald just outside that top dozen, 4/10 of a second behind Jacques Botha.
I remember Chase Herald started quite far down. Now Jason Coetzee has gone into the pits. Not sure why. I didn't see any incident with Jason Coetzee. He was in fact lying in 4th position for an extended period of time. So is that a drive-through penalty maybe? Is he going to go straight through?
I think that's going to have to be...
No, he's going to stop.
He's going to stop, yes. Well, what the problem is there, we don't know. He almost stopped in the wrong pit box. at that point in time. So yeah, issues out there for Jason Kutsia. Drops all the way down to 22nd position as he's there in the pits. But we ride aboard here with Familiaris that sits there in that 5th position. He's a 10th of a second behind de Nobrega. Now he's ahead of him. Made that move, stick and goes in too hot and loses that position once again there to de Nobrega. And now Lucchesi is all over the back end there of the Familiaris Ferrari.
He realized he saw Lucchesi coming and he actually moved across to cover that line to stop Lucchesi. Otherwise, he would have dropped one position further down. Byron Mitchell starting to put a bit of pressure onto the back of Umpi Swart.
Yeah, he is right there, 4/10 of a second behind him, and Zak Foster 6/7 of a second behind Mitchell in that Mercedes-Benz. So there you see the Merc come out of that right-hander. That's the Monster Energy Mercedes-Benz of Zak Foster, and the first of the Merc sitting there in that 9th position. So Gerald Fourie in that 15th place. He and Andrew Thomas is having a fight for Peter Hubert's 13th position. Peter has got that Pennzoil Audi, and then behind him is Thomas and Fourie in the 2 Porsches.
Well, that's the right-hand front from Gerald Fourie, 4/10 of a second. That's what it looks like. And, well, that yellow car that's in front of them, that's the second of the Audis out on circuit in order. It's Byron Mitchell in that 8th position. He's the fastest of the Audis out there, the R8. And surprisingly, that there isn't more of those Audis that have been chosen for the series.
Yeah, Gerald Fourie, here he comes, right on the case there of Andy Thomas. They are side by side as they race down towards turn number 1. Thomas on the outside, Fourie on the inside. Who will be the last of the late breakers? Ahead of them is Peter Hubert. The trees get in the way, but we'll see now as they go into the right-hander, and Fourie gets his nose ahead there of Thomas.
Also getting pretty tight up front is Umpi Swart. Look at that, Umpi Swart is all over the back of Luke Lucchesi. Now, Luke Lucchesi is pretty much the fastest of the old hands, if we want to call it that. And I do believe if anybody can take on the young guns, it is in fact Luke Lucchesi. But even Luke has said, look, the younger guys with their reflexes is very, very difficult to beat them. And he knows he's got a lot of work ahead of him if he's going to take on the top 10 of the youngsters in South African motorsport that are most of them presently racing in the real world around South Africa, Stream Festival and local racing as well.
So Umpi Swart with that Ferrari is there ahead of Byron Mitchell. Then we've got Zak Foster in there in that Mercedes-Benz. There he goes with that Monster Energy Merc. Right there behind him, 1.7 seconds is Johan Fourie in car 46 in the Monster Energy Ferrari. Busy working his way around. He's got a comfortable cushion there on Jacques Botha that you just see come into view there. Now remember, Jacques had trouble in lap 1. I think it was either turn 1 or turn 2. You saw that Mercedes-Benz take to the grass. So Jacques Botha is busy fighting back and currently finding himself there in P11.
And I believe he's pulling away from the likes of Chase Herald, because there's 2.3 seconds between himself and Chase. Remember, early on we showed you some footage of those two, that in fact the 3 of them, Jacques Botha, Chase Herald and Pity Hubert, that were very, very close to one another. There you see Pity Hubert has dropped off the back of Chase Herald, and Chase Herald has dropped off the back of a Jacques Botha. But Gerald Fourie is trying to make a plan to get a little bit further up. Remember, his son is up in 2nd position, Leighton Fourie. He's in one part of the house with his steering wheel. Gerald Fourie is in the man cave with his steering wheel and pedals. Father and son both out there. They both qualified for the Canvas Intelligent GT3 2023 Series. And, well, both of them in the top 15.
Well, here comes Fourie, Gerald Fourie up on the inside of Peter Hubert. They're side by side, and Hubert has to yield that position there to Gerald Fourie. Andrew Thomas is right in there as well. Here comes Andy Thomas, and all of a sudden Sandro Bakari and Peter van der Spey comes into play as well. But we go back to that front battle. That's a battle there for de Nobrega's 4th position. Tristan de Nobrega, he's got Luke Lucchesi right in there behind him. Then the Durant Motorsport boys are in the house. Familiaris in the Ferrari. The other Ferrari is Swart, and then the Byron Mitchell Audi, and then the Mercedes-Benz of Zach Foster, 0.6 of a second behind Byron Mitchell.
Julian Familiaris just outside of the top 5, outside of Luke Lucchesi. That's pretty much a half a second. That's what it looks like at that pace that they're running there. 200 plus kilometers an hour. That's fifth gear, and hard on the gas as you work your way into the longer sections of the circuit. Here we go, 2 gears down, hard on the brakes, and a late apex. Use that extra piece of tar that's there on the outside, and you can see where the tar comes to an end, Frankie. The guys are clipping the dirt section as they get it lined up nice and neatly to get as quick as possible out of the corner. Let's go back to the front end of the field. Troy Dolenchik, remember, he started in P1 pole position, and he's holding sway there against the man that's directly behind him, Leighton Ferree. There comes Luke King. He's falling back a bit, but he's still in the game. Tristan de Nobrega, rack-backed and stacked behind Tristan de Nobrega. Here they come. It's Luke Lucchesi, it's Julian Familiaris, it's Umpi Swart, it's Byron Mitchell, it's Zach Foster, it's Johan Ferree. It doesn't get any tighter than that. Behind Johan Ferree, he would like to go and join them, is Jacques Buerter. Can he catch up to them? Let's have a look at the last lap times. Where did Jacques Buerter come in at? 2:04.809. Yes, he is quicker than Johan Ferree. That could become a 6-way battle from the 5 that we've got together right now.
Here comes Tracy Herold out of that right-hander, and behind him in P13 is Gerald Farid. But let's go back to this fight here that's raging on behind Tristan de Nobrega. It is Luke Lucchesi for Race Driver SA and Pantera Racing sitting right on his case there as they make their way out of that left-hander into that right-hander. That is the front right-hand suspension of the Luke Lucchesi Pantera Racing Porsche as he crowds the back end there of the Nobrega Porsche, working their way towards the carousel.
Very, very equidistant between them. Keep an eye on the gap between Johan Ferree and Zach Foster, 9th and 10th position. Johan Ferree 1.8 seconds off the back of Zach, and Zach Foster on the back end of that 5-car train. Can it become a 6-car train? I think so. Can Jacques Buerter catch up to Johan Ferree? It looks like it, because on the last lap he was 9/10 of a second quicker.
Yeah, I think that's going to be very interesting as this one pans out. Johan Ferree and Jacques Buerter, he's definitely quicker out there than what Ferree is. We go back to that fight there for Gerald Ferree's 13th position, because Andrew Thomas right in there behind him, followed by Peter Hubert coming through. Remember that Ferree cleared Thomas going into turn 1 a couple of laps ago, and now Thomas right in there behind Ferree, followed by Peter Hubert, and just under 2.5 seconds behind him is the Ferrari of Sandro Beccari, and 7/10 of a second behind him is the Porsche in P17 of Willem Buerter.
Then it's Captain Peter van der Spey, Noor Hendricks inside the top 20 with that pitch black version of the Ferrari. He's the 5th, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, the 5th fastest Ferrari out there. Then behind him comes Raymond Duggan, Janeman Prius, Graham Stephen a long way down, and we're accustomed to see Graham Stephen a whole heap further up the island, and he's down in 22nd position.
But you will recall in that opening lap, also there in the first sector of the opening lap, he got spat out to the left-hand side, so there was issues there with him. There is Stephen Cakebread, and behind him is Stephen Duplessis, and Cakebread in the BMW, and Duplessis in the Pink Pig, sitting in there just behind him, 2/10 of a second behind Stephen Cakebread.
So looking back from the man that's got all the pressure on him, Tristan de Nobrega, rack-backed and stacked, and in fact that's very much the same livery between these two Porsches, Race Driver SA, and that's Tristan de Nobrega looking back towards Luke Lucchesi, and then behind that you can see through the windscreen of Luke Lucchesi's car, there's Julian Familiaris, the man from the Mobile One V8 side of the world. Then it's Yuri Umpi Swart just a little bit further back, and then sticking it in there with him is Byron Mitchell. Zach Foster not falling off, but not getting closer either. Remember the last time we spoke about Johan Ferree, 1.8. It's still around the 1.8 and the 1.9. That was very close to making contact with Tristan de Nobrega, but he placed the car very, very much in the center of the circuit.
The boys are driving very, very hard out there. Big thanks to Canvas Intelligence for the sponsorship of the GT3 Series. and Motorsport SA and Second Gear Productions. Right, Gazza, you have a challenge. We have a challenge, and Lucchese is challenging Donobriga going down into turn number 1. They side by side. They still side by side, and it's Luke Lucchese that gets his nose ahead there into turn 1 of Donobriga, and Familiaris wants to have a go as well. He sits there on the left-hand side of him, but the line gets covered there by Donobriga.
So it looked as if Tristan Donobriga had them racked, packed and stacked behind him, and the first man to get through is now Luke Lucchese. Should that be the case, the next question is Luke Lucchese 4.2 off Luke King, who's doing a pretty decent job in that third position. Can Luke Lucchese get away from this group, or is it going to now be a whole line of cars sitting in there behind Luke Lucchese?
Well, I think Luke is busy disappearing already. You can see that there's a gap opening between himself and Donobriga. And Donobriga's got Familiaris, Swart and Mitchell right in there with him. And don't forget about Zach Foster, only 1.5 seconds between Mitchell and Foster. So definitely Lucchese is beginning to escape out underneath Tristan Donobriga.
So, okay, so that means that Tristan did a brilliant job of the qualifying to be able to jump these guys that look as if they are marginally quicker than what he is. But if you think about it, there's only 18 minutes gone in 1 hour 30. That is a very, very long race. Leighton Fourie having closed up onto the back of Troy Dolenchek. Now, where did they start and where are they right now? They are exactly where they are when they started. The first 3 in qualifying, Troy Dolenchek from Leighton Fourie and Luke King, all 3 of them exactly where they were. Luke Lucchese from 10th position all the way up through to 4th, and then Tristan Donobriga from 8th position up into 5th. So that means that he actually did very well on the opening lap to be able to make up those positions. But yeah, the pressure is on there from behind. Julian Familiaris is just a little bit further back. He's got them all lined up there behind him. How much is that slipstream going to make a difference? We're going to find out in the next 450 meters.
Talking about going up in the last 10 laps, Willem Botha has moved up 12 positions. He sits there in P17. But the fight is on because Familiaris says, man, I'm going to have to get past Donobriga very, very quickly indeed, because Luke Lucchese is busy disappearing down the road. And he knows that he's got Yuri Swart in there behind him and Byron Mitchell. So the Durant Motorsport boys are going to have a go at Donobriga. And here comes Familiaris, and he's nailed him. Julian has nailed him going into that hairpin left-hander. But Donobriga fights right back again. He's not going to give that one away very easily, Gary. But where do you look? They are attacking him from all angles.
Oh, well, that's up the inside line, and that works Tristan Donobriga towards the outside. Now the next man to have a look to see what he can do directly behind that is, in fact, Yuri Umpi Swart. Can Umpi Swart get through? No, Tristan Donobriga. That is a couple of positions up from where he started. He started in 8th position, got himself up to 5th. He's now down to 6th position, but he's still got that line of cars behind him. If you look on the left-hand side, you'll see Tristan Donobriga, and then everything that is not in white, that's less than 1 second. And Byron Mitchell is very much pressurizing Umpi. Now, are they working together, or are they just sitting line astern and trying to pick it off and take the Durant cars towards the front end of the grid?
Well, I don't know. I think this is every person for themselves here. And at this point in time, it's not an endurance race, so they are representing Durant Motorsport, but I think it's not one for all and all for one here. It's just me for myself. Zach Foster has crawled up into only 0.6 of a second behind Byron Mitchell as they work their way up the main straight. Remember, that's an uphill heading down into turn number 1, going under the NTT bridge, heading into the 90-degree right-hander. That is turn number 1, and there's that train of cars working its way into that right-hander. It's Donobriga, and behind Donobriga is Umpi Swart. And then behind him it's Byron Mitchell, followed there by Zach Foster. Only 1.4 behind Foster is Jacques Botha, and 1.2 behind him is Johan Fourie.
Another man that's starting to get on the move and inside of the top 15, Andrew Thomas.
Yes, Andrew Thomas and Peter Hubert, they're still fighting for that third position that's been occupied there by Gerald Fourie at this point in time. That's the fight that we're looking at. And ahead of them, you see Chase Herald go through. He's in that BMW, and he's 1.4 ahead of Gerald Fourie, the man that's been hassled there by Andrew Thomas. There is Chase Herald sitting in that 12th position. Here comes Gerald Fourie. Right behind him is Andrew Thomas, and right behind him is the Pennzoil Audi of Peter Hubert.
And just behind that, we've got Sandro Bakari, a pretty good run there by Sandro Bakari, and then the recovering Willem Botha in the next position. That's down in 17th. Then we go a little bit further back to Peter van der Spey, and Noor Hendricks has not been dropped by Peter van der Spey whatsoever. He's sitting right on the back of Captain Pitt. We have missed out on Captain Pitt in the West Province Sports and GT Master Series in the early part of the season, and he was out and about and doing lots of sporting things, and he's now got himself back into the motorsport again. Byron Mitchell all over the back of Umpi Swart. Working together? I almost think so.
Well, we'll have to look and see, because they also know that those two Mercedes-Benz cars are behind them. Not teammates though, but that's Zak Foster and Jacques Botha, and there's a second between the two of them, being chased down there by Johan Fourie, who's 2 seconds behind the combination of Foster and Botha. Right, Gary, 23 minutes done. Pit stops, I think anywhere from 50 minutes forward. I think that's when you're going to see the majority of these guys work their way into pit lane.
Well, if you look there, everybody up into position 23 has not done any pit stops whatsoever. Halfway through hour 30, that would give you 45. We're on 23 at the moment now, so that would be another 22 minutes from now. That would bring you halfway. Notorious, we know for a fact that the likes of Johan Fourie likes to go in early into the pits, and somehow he just manages to jump the traffic and get in and out of the pits very quickly. Will this be another one of those races? Well, we're going to see when we get to 45 minutes. How big is that pit window? That's the other thing that we don't know, and I think none of the guys really know exactly how far they were going to be able to go with the amount of fuel that was provided for them. So you'll probably find that there's about I'm going to guess about an 8 to 10 lap window between where you can stop and make it to the end and where you have to stop. Otherwise you're going to run out of juice and do what was originally duped by Dr. Mike Verrier as the Verrier move, because Mike Verrier, he actually started West Province Sports and GT Masters, and he was the first man they tried to go just a little bit too far and actually ran out of fuel out there on circuit. Thereafter it was duped the Verrier Special, and if you run out of fuel, well, that's what we're going to call it. Leighton Fourie holding on to the back of Troy Dolenchik.
Yeah, there's 3/10 of a second between Troy and Leighton at this point in time. There's two BMWs sitting up there in P1 and 2. In the last lap, Leighton was quicker than what Dolenchik was. 2/10 of a second now, so one gets the feeling that Leighton Fourie is just pacing himself. Only 25 minutes done, so there's a long way to go. Luke King sitting in that third position, 3.8 seconds behind them, and he's having a pretty stable race there, is Luke King, but he is being closed down by the man in P4, namely Luke Lucchesi. Only 2.4 between King and Lucchesi. Familiar Harris is now getting away from De Nobrega, and Byron Mitchell and Yuri Swart, Zak Foster and Jacques Botha is all over the back of the 7-0 Porsche of race driver SA Esports, Tristan De Nobrega.
Can you refer to Tristan De Nobrega as the train man? Tristan the train man De Nobrega? Because he's had a train of cars behind him right from the start.
He's a train driver at this point in time.
Yeah, you must actually refer to him. I mean, the train man is like everybody's trying to get past you. The train driver is everybody's trying to hold on to the back of you. Tristan De Nobrega, he's had a brilliant race so far. He's been right there in the action. Tristan De Nobrega from Byron Mitchell. Byron Mitchell, a whiz in terms of preparing motor cars and setting up motor cars and racing motor cars, is Byron Mitchell, and his lady friend Kelly Fletcher is also very, very quick with the Formula Libras as well. And I'm sure that Kelly is busy watching this production and egging him on as we work our way through. Oh, look at that. The bend's completely sideways. Zak Foster was off out of line there, and Jacques Botha had a bird's eye view.
Yeah, well, that was actually the 888 of Botha that went off the circuit. Ahead of him was Foster in that Monster Energy. But I'm having a look a little bit further down. Johan Fourie is there in that 11th position. I did see a car behind him. That's Willem Botha. Well, yeah, he's been lapped, is Willem Botha. So he's been lapped by everybody. He sits there in that 28th position in car 23. And he's just been lapped there by Johan Fourie.
So let's have a look at what it looks like when you're flat foot down the main straight. That's what it looks like. And is it going to be under the braking markers? And nope, he's going to climb back into the slipstream. He's not going to be able to make that one stick from there. So Johan Fourie, unfortunately, not been able to get himself at this position up into the top 10.
Yeah, well, Botha is a lap down, so there's no ways he's going to have a go at Johan Fourie. Johan P11, Willem in P28. So let's have a look a bit further up the field. And Dolacek still sitting there, 0.3 of a second ahead of Leighton Fourie, as we watch Johan Fourie with the back marker in there behind him. The next man on the lead lap behind Fourie will be Chase Herald, and there's 10 seconds between the two of them.
Now, Chase Herald has done development work for certain people back in the day, but working for Neandertoy at Killarney International didn't really have enough time to continue doing the development work, and he's actually been a little bit out of the iRacing for a period of time. Recently, he has now actually gone on his own, and that in preparing racing cars is Chase Herald. And well, now that he's got an opportunity to get back out on circuit again, in 12th position, Gerald Fourie, the father of Leighton Fourie, just in there behind him. And then Andrew Thomas still inside the top 15.
Yeah, sits there in that 14th position, but that fight for Donobrega's P6 is still raging on, because Mitchell, Swart and Botha and Zak Foster are right in there as well. As a matter of fact, Botha has now got his nose ahead of Zak Foster. Remember, Botha was squirming all over the place and Foster was ahead of him, and P9 and 10 has now changed around.
Oh, nothing much in the overall pace that these guys are in. Look at the undulation on that straight. You've got that long rise up towards the start finish line, and then a long slight downhill down towards turn number 1.
Well, it's a hill, up and down hill heading into turn number 1. That 90-degree right-hander Donobrega in that 6th position, but he knows the boys are after him, and that is Byron Mitchell, Yuri Swart, Jacques Botha, Zak Foster, and don't count out Johan Fourie. He's only just over 2 seconds is Fourie behind Foster, and yeah, that's still the back marker, Botha, that sits there behind him. But it's strange that he's not been able to pull away from that back marker. Here is Chase Herald. He sits in P12. Behind him is Gerald Fourie. Behind Gerald Fourie is Andrew Thomas. And behind him is Peter Hubert. And behind him is Sandro Bakari.
Captain Peter van der Spey and Noor Hendricks. He hasn't got rid of Noor. Noor is right there. And in fact, Graham Stephen hasn't been dropped from that one either. Janeman Prius, and that's the best friend of Stephen Koenig, the man that won the second year talk show top commentators award in 2021, the beginning of 2021. The two of them are normally teammates for the 6 hour, which as we said at the top of the program, is now going to become the 4 hour, and there will be 4 of those in 2023.
Right, Dolacek, Sujin Properties, Fourie sits there in that second position, 0.3 of a second between these two BMWs as they work their way through. BMW P123, that's a Dot Soft Racing BM of King that sits there in that third position. Here comes Family Harris. Here comes Tristan de Nobrega. Right behind him is Byron Mitchell. Behind him is Yuri Umpi Swart. And then behind him is Jacques Botha. And as a matter of fact, Johan Fourie has now also got his nose ahead of Zak Forster. Johan going up to P10, and the Mercedes of Forster dropping down now behind him. So Zak has lost 2 positions, one to Jacques Botha and the other one to Johan Fourie.
A little bit further down, rounding out the top dozen, there is Chase Herald, Gerald Fourie, Andrew Thomas, the next man coming through. Pity Hubert, you can't miss him in the Pennzoil colours. Lovely to see Sandro Bakari out there, the man that's taken over to a large extent the Masters Series. And I think he's done some brilliant work in the absence of Mike Verrier. Talking about Mike Verrier, he's doing some endurance racing this year, and he said he would not have enough time to be able to do all the Masters races, and then also to set everything up as well. So his best mate Sandro Bakari getting involved with that one and doing a brilliant job of it. And now recently Luke Lucchesi saying I want to make a couple of changes, can I have a bash at it? And Luke Lucchesi taking over the Masters Series from here on out for the balance of 2023. 32 minutes in, Frankie. That's exactly 33% of the way. Are we into pit stops yet? Well, the top boys have not been in yet at all. So your prediction of around about 50, you saying 5 seconds after the halfway mark, that is when you're expecting the guys to come in. I'm going to say I think some of them are going to come in on 43, 44 and 45 minutes, depending on where they find themselves in the traffic. If you're sitting in a high-speed train and you're holding sway, that's all fine and well. If you're sitting behind the train driver, Tristan de Nobrega, and you can't get through, maybe then you do a Johan Fourie, you go in earlier and you try and gain a track position. Having said that, how does it play out between Troy Dolenchik and Leighton Fourie? Does Leighton try an undercut, or does Leighton try an overcut? Is he just following Troy Dolenchik at this stage of the fight, or is he not capable of getting past Dolenchik without putting it all on the line?
I think he is. He could be playing the waiting game. I said from 50 minutes plus we'll see pit stops happening, and I think up until, well, round about that time or whenever they decide to make their pit stops, I believe you're going to see these two drivers hang around like this, but in that order. But here comes Luke King, 1.5 seconds behind him is Luke Lucchesi. So Lucchesi for race driver SAE Racing and Pantera Racing is closing up onto the back end of the Luke King BMW. Julian Familiaris is 2.1 behind him, and he is 4.4 behind de Nobrega. And de Nobrega has still got Mitchell and Swart right in there behind him. So the two Durant Motorsport drivers still hassling Tristan de Nobrega.
On board with Umpi Swart, 0.7 of a second between himself and the car in front of him, that being Byron Mitchell, and you can see his distance to Byron is double that of Byron onto the back of Tristan de Nobrega. Tristan that started up in 8th position and went up to 5th, then dropped down to 6th position. He hasn't got such a train behind him at this stage of the fight, but there is still that tendency for the cars in front of Byron of Tristan to get a little bit away and then have 1 or 2 guys on his bumper. But we're talking about tenths and hundredths of a second. That's in it. 17 laps down, 35 minutes into 1 hour 30. Round number 3 of the MSA 2023 GT3 Series, brought to you by Canvas Intelligence.
Yeah, and produced by Second Gear Productions. So here we go. Umpi Swart sitting there in P8. 0.5 of a second behind Byron Mitchell, who's 0.5 of a second behind de Nobrega. Those are 3 cars you see there. Yes, Graham Stephen, he's in 19th position, and he is fighting back after having that problem out there in the opening sector of lap number 1, and he is right in there behind Noah Hendricks and Peter van der Spey, just ahead there of Hendricks, and that is 17, 18 and 19 that you see there on screen.
You can hear how he was playing with the accelerator as he went over the top of the rise. You've got to be very careful as the car lightens itself up as you go over the top of the rise. Let's just ride on board here with Graham Stephen down in 19th position under the NTT board. As you come up over the rise, you see there's the flagman directly above you in the trike rack, shall we say, starter's position that comes out over the circuit. You'll see there on the left hand side there was cones 4, 3 and then 2 cones that was showing you the 175 and 50 meter markers.
Well, while you're watching this, I saw that De Nobrega and Mitchell, they were chopping and changing, but De Nobrega managed to get back there into P6 ahead of Mitchell. So Byron Mitchell is saying, man, I've got to get through. He had his nose through briefly, and then De Nobrega said, I'm going to hang on to this one for a while. But they also realized that Yuri Swart is in there, and just behind them you see that very loud color scheme Mercedes-Benz of Jacques Buerta come through, and he's just over 2 seconds behind Yuri Swart.
Well, Jacques Buerta, as you said, in that brightly colored car, that was the one that Frankie was referring to, uber bright colors, that's in that 9th position. So 37 minutes into the 1 hour 30 with 18 laps down.
Right, Jacques Buerta sitting out there in that 9th position. We see Jacques Buerta come through with a 888 car, and Jacques is 2.2 seconds behind Yuri Swart, and he is just around about 5.7 seconds ahead there of Johan Fourie, but Johan Fourie's got Zach Foster coming right back at him again. Remember that Foster dropped down there behind Fourie, and you see them just come over the rise. There is Johan Fourie, and Johan Fourie has got a recovering Zach Foster coming straight back at him again. Chase Herald sitting up there in that 12th position. He's now been hassled here by Gerald Fourie, and that's the 2 cars you see there on screen, the BMW and the Porsche.
It's pretty interesting to see the way that this one spanned out. Remember, the top 6, there was 4 BMWs in the top 6 originally. First, second and third BMW. Then we've got the Porsche, then the Ferrari, then the Audi. So that shows you that there's not that much difference between the different cars, because then behind that, once again, it's Porsche, Ferrari, then the first of the Mercedes-Benzes. Now, Jacques Buerta and Zach Foster in the Mercedes-Benzes only got JJ van der Merwe that is further down. So definitely the Mercedes-Benz not being really a first choice for any of the guys that are main contenders in the series.
Mitchell is now ahead of De Nobrega, and he is 0.4 of a second ahead of him. Remember, he got there and then lost out. Here's Noah Hendricks, and he's having a go at Van der Spey.
He's got past eventually.
Yeah, he just got his nose ahead there of Captain Peter Van der Spey. But Byron Mitchell has taken a while, but he has eventually cleared De Nobrega for that fight for P6 and 7.
Gerald Fourie getting himself a whole lot closer as well. He's in there behind Chase Herald. Now remember, Chase Herald's got lots of space in front of him. He's in fact got 8 seconds in front of him, and he doesn't really have to worry that much because there's no traffic between himself and Zach Foster as well. If you look at the battle box for 11th on the right hand side, you'll see in place number 12, that's Chase Herald, and then Zach Foster just ahead of him, and you can then see the gap between the two of them as well.
Well, Lucchesi has just done a personal best here. But now Gerald Fourie, as we were saying, was all over the back end of the Chase Herald car. He has broken away from Andrew Thomas and from Peter Hubert. Remember that the 3 of them were having a lovely fight earlier on, and he's not only cleared them, but he's pulling away from them now. So De Nobrega has lost out that position, and he sits there in P7, and right on his case now, it doesn't get easier, and it is Yuri Swart that sits there. Umpi, will you have a look up on the inside? No, he's not close enough there to the 7-0 Porsche of De Nobrega, and closing in on all 3 of them is the 888 Mercedes-Benz of Jacques Buerta.
So let's have a look at the best lap time of each of the drivers out there as we keep an eye on the closest battle that's happening right now, which is the Byron Mitchell, Tristan De Nobrega, Umpi Swart battle. So the man that's placed the fastest lap out there at 204.1, that's just a 10th of a second quicker than Troy Dolenchik. But look at all the 204s all the way down to 11th position. So everybody in the first 11 positions, breaking the 205 marker. But look from there on out, just about all the way down to 19th, and literally the top 20 is all inside of the 205s as well. So it's actually very, very close, to be very honest.
Right. We're still looking at this fight here. De Nobrega being hassled here by Yuri Umpi Swart, as Byron Mitchell is now beginning to put a gap here on De Nobrega, working their way around. There's Gerald Fourie in that 13th position. Hasn't managed to get his nose ahead of Chasey Herald yet. Chase still rounds off that top dozen. I see that Yuri Swart has made his way into the pit lane. And with 41 minutes done, I think he was saying to himself, listen here, I am stuck in here behind De Nobrega. Let me rather make my way into pit lane.
Is that a drive-through or is that his actual stop? It's
No,
almost
that'll
looking
be a
like
pit
a
stop.
drive-through. Well, it'll be terrible for him. No, he's going into the pit box. So, is my prediction correct that from 42, 43 minutes onwards, the guys will start going in? Or is Frankie's prediction going to come through that they're going to run a little bit longer and have slightly fresher tires towards the end? The first of the guys to blink, well, he's in the pits already. How long is it going to take before these guys are going to follow through? 21 laps over 42 minutes of the 1 hour 30 GT3s for 2023. A big thanks to Canvas Intelligence.
Yep. Canvas Intelligence, Motorsport South Africa, and being brought to you by Second Gear Productions. Troy Dollarcheck, Sujin Properties, BMW sitting up there in P1, 4/10 of a second ahead of Leighton Fourie, that is in that second position. And one gets the feeling that these two drivers have got it all under control, but we must not forget about Luke King. He's just under 4 seconds behind these two, and he is now being closed up heavily here by Luke Lucchese. Earlier on we said that was 2.4, 2.1 was Lucchese behind King, and now he's 7/10 of a second in there behind Luke King. Byron Mitchell in that 6th position, not really getting away from De Nobrega. That is there in P7. Remember that Umpi Swart went to go and pit, which means that Jacques Botha will now be promoted up there to P8.
Frankie, let's talk a little bit about this man, Johan Fourie. He's normally right up front. Somehow today, he's just not on the pace with the youngsters up front.
Well, I think the only two over 40s that are in that top 10 is Luke Lucchese and Johan Fourie, and they're about the only two, with all respect to the others, that can run with these guys at this point in time. And talking about Jacques Botha in P8, he makes his way into pit lane.
And there comes Chase Herald. He's going to be going past and picking up another position, although he's not being into the pits yet. So Chase Herald comes through. There he moves up. Gerald Fourie moves up. Andrew Thomas there just behind them. He will then go one further forward as well. There comes Andrew Thomas a little bit further back. He seems to now be getting away from Peter Hubert and then Sandro Bakari. I see Graham Stephen is in 18th position. He's come into the pits as well.
Yeah, he's bringing that Audi into the pit area. You see Peter Hubert go through. Just behind him there is Sandro Bakari. That is Noah Hendricks that's coming through, and he's beginning to slightly edge away here from Peter van der Spey that sits there in that 16th position. So not too many gaps out there from P12 all the way down, with Botha and Stephen, of course, in the pit lane. Here comes Peter van der Spey just behind that Ferrari of Noah Hendricks, and there is 1.8 seconds between Hendricks and van der Spey.
Janeman Prius and then Raymond Duggan, Duncan Murray right in there behind them as well. Now remember, Umpi Swart is the next man out on circuit, but if we have a look at the pit stops as such, he is probably, yes he is, he's the lead man out on circuit that has been in for the pit stops. Now, does Umpi Swart have open ground in front of him? Yes, he has, because the man that's ahead of him is Duncan Murray, and that's 7 seconds. So if there's a chance for Umpi to now bump himself up the grid. As you said, Frankie, if you're sitting in a whole lot of traffic, climb out of it, go into the pits, get some new rubber, get some open air in front of you, get the hammer down and see if you can make up positions. That looks to me like what Umpi Swart has done. We are in fact just past the halfway mark as we're on 46.
Yeah, here he comes through, and behind him is Stephen Cakebread, 4.4 seconds there behind Yuri Swart, sitting in that 21st position. But remember that Yuri was the first of that top 10 to blink and make his way into the pit area with somewhere between 40 and 45 minutes. He worked his way into the pit, so he will be expecting to finish this one and hopefully work his way up when everybody else makes their way into pit lane.
Luke Lucchese on the back of Luke King. Now, once again, here's another scenario. You're already past the halfway mark. Does Luke Lucchese try and get past Luke King if he is capable of doing such, or does he now also try and do the undercut? And I'll ask the same question now also, Leighton Fourie. He's been within a half a second of Troy Dolenchik for 23 laps for 3/4 of an hour. He doesn't, to my mind, from what I can see, he hasn't really tried to get past Troy Dolenchik. I think he believes that the two of them together should rather get away from Luke King, because we know that Luke King can be blindingly quick out there and he doesn't make mistakes very easily. So maybe a very calm approach by Leighton Fourie. I mean, if you've won the Polo Cup, the Super Polos and the Polo Cup Series on Extreme Festival, you've got to have a very level head. And Troy Dolenchik, the young gun out there, he's just finished his rookie year in the Investchem Formula 1600s. He's in his second year and looking pretty strong after the first round at Quran International Raceway to try and pick up top honours in the Investchem Formula 1600 Series, and that with the exact same sponsor that you see on his motor car right there, Sujin Properties.
Yeah, Leighton Fourie that you were talking about, he's a 2021 Polo Cup champion. He's Leighton Fourie, but that seems like a lifetime ago as he sits there in that second position. That's the man you see chasing down the Sujin Properties BMW of Troy Dolenchik, the man that Gary was talking about in the Formula 1600s. The son of the famous Dolenchik racing family down here in Cape Town. And Troy himself, a very, very, very good young karter as well, and progressed from karting up into the Formula 1600s, and he will do all he can to keep Fourie there behind him. And then Luke King, now only 0.2 of a second ahead of Luke Lucchese. So Luke Lucchese said, man, I'm going to have a go with him, and he has to have a go with him because only 1.8 behind the two of them is Familiaris. There you see him come into view there with that lovely Durant Motorsport Ferrari.
They're talking about the Dolenchiks, Wally Dolenchik Jr., Wally Dolenchik Senior, Wally Dolenchik Jr. He's done amazing stuff out on circuit, and there was always a senior that was with him, his dad, that was doing all the preparation for the car. But hasn't Troy Dolenchik got another brother that's also in karting as well?
Joshua Dolenchik, and he was also once upon a time in Formula 1600s. And of course, who can forget Auntie Joy Dolenchik, famous legendary lady at Killarney International.
Yeah, she was very much involved with the karting for many years and in the officialdom of Motorsport South Africa as well. And I think the whole Dolenchik family has added just so much in terms of knowledge and pace setting and spice and preparation of motor cars into motorsport in South African motorsport. Amazing racing family. Leighton Fourie is getting close, but Byron Mitchell is into the pits. Let's see if we can try and pick up that one. Yep, Byron Mitchell's into the pits. Tristan de Nobrega into the pits as well. No undercut, no overcut, just into the pit lane, 6th and 7th position. Now remember, the man that's highest up on the grid up until now has been Umpi Swart, that's been in and out of the pits.
Well, I said 50 minutes. I was more or less right as they worked their way into the pit area, de Nobrega and Mitchell. So let's have a look and see if these two are in the pits with almost 51 minutes done. I think the others are going to start thinking of doing exactly the same.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised whatsoever. So when does Troy Dolanchik come in? Does he carry on going until such time as Leighton Ferree goes in, then try and put in a couple of the flies as if he's not flying at the moment? Let's see who's got the fastest lap time out there at the moment. Is it still, no, it's not alongside Leighton Ferree, Julian Familiares, a 204.029, the only man to be on within 29 thousandths of a second of breaking the 204 barrier. Will anybody get under 204? I somehow don't think so. That's very, very quick.
Well, 204.1 and 204 dead, so yeah, possible, but I don't think so. Behind them, it's still happening. Luke King, right behind him, Luke Lucchesi, right behind him, Julian Familiaris, and right behind him is Johan Ferree, but Ferree is 21 seconds behind Julian, obviously moving up because we've just seen the other two work their way into pit lane, and now Dolanchik goes into the pits. Dolanchik goes into the pit lane. Luke King goes into pit lane, and so does Luke Lucchesi. So, Gary, it's a classic example of Ferree and Dolanchik don't do what he does.
Yeah, well, that is what it's all about. Do you do the same or do you do something different? They say if you do today what you did yesterday, you'll have the same result today as what you had yesterday. If you've done 26 laps and you haven't managed to, oh, look at that, it's getting busy in the pit lane. And that's the other thing. When you come into the pits, you need to be very, very neat and tidy. If you're too far to the left or right, the pit crew don't help you. If you're too far forward or too far back, the pit crew don't help you. You need to be where you have to be in the box. There's Troy Dolanchik, there's Luke King, there's Luke Lucchesi, there is Johan Ferree, he's in as well. There's Zach Foster, there's Chase Herald that's in there. They're all working their way into the pits. Now, the man that was the highest up was Yuri Umpi-Srod. Where is Yuri Umpi-Srod? There is Umpi that you see, number 17. He's busy working his way through the last corner and out into the front main, and there you see the first of the big hitters working their way out of the pits and out onto the circuit. So that's going to be pretty interesting. Now, don't forget, Leighton Ferree is the man that has not gone in yet. Let's have a look, see who exactly has been in for the pit stops and who has not. That means Troy Dolanchik is the leading car that has been into the pits, and behind him Luke King, Luke Lucchesi, and they all very, very close to one another. The whole thing now is Leighton goes in. When he comes out, can he come out at the front of the pack? That's going to be the difficult call.
Well, another name we never mentioned was Gerald Ferree. He's also in the pits and busy working his way out onto the circuit. There he goes. He rejoins in that 14th position. So, good question. As Peter Hubert comes out, Sandro Bakari works his way out of the pits as well. Peter in P18, Sandro Bakari in P19, and Leighton Ferree pits. Leighton Ferree works his way into the pit area. Now, the question is, will Dolanchik take the lead again?
Oh, Familiaris as well.
Leighton Ferree leapfrog him?
So, that means Julian Familiaris comes in as well. Where is Noor Hendricks? Well, he hasn't done a pit stop, but he might be able to say that there was once upon a twice that I led one of these races. I don't think so. He's in third overall. You'll see the black number 3 with a green around it. He's got a long way to go before he gets to the start-finish line. It's not going to be very long between Leighton Ferree and Julian Familiaris when they're going to come out of the pits. I think they will come out ahead of Noor Hendricks. I remember Noor Hendricks got stuck behind Peter van der Spy for the better part of 25-26 minutes. Eventually got past Peter van der Spy, and he's taken 3 seconds out of Peter van der Spy as Noor Hendricks now comes into the pits in that third position into the pits. Peter van der Spy comes into the pits as well, and Troy Dolanchik works his way past with the Sergine car. And where is Leighton Ferree going to be? Leighton Ferree is already in there. Leighton Ferree leads them out, and Leighton Ferree 3 seconds ahead of Troy Dolanchik. Leighton did something right in the pits, or Troy did something wrong in the pits?
Well, between the two of them is Leon van Wyk in that 79 Porsche. So yeah, he leapfrogged him in the pit area, and he's got a back marker between himself and Dolanchik, and Dolanchik has got problems. It is called Luke King. There's 0.6 of a second between them, And another problem is called Luke Lucchesi and Julian Familiaris. So the boys are in town after their pit stops, 55 minutes done. Let's make it 56 on the clock because we're 10 seconds shy of the 56 mark. As Familiaris in P5 sits there 8/10 of a second behind the Porsche of Luke Lucchesi.
Frankie, let's talk a little bit about Julian Familiaris. Mobil won a V8 National Series for the last almost 2.5 years, has shown that he is very, very capable out on circuit, and part of the Extreme Festival once again for this year, 2023.
Yeah, he races with the likes of Mackie Adlam and the Franco Di Matteo, and
now you're talking big names.
The Walford family, Larry Walford and Terry Walford and those guys. So those are pretty big names amongst others that race in that Mobil 1 V8 supercars, and Familiaris is just one of those big guns that race in that V8 series.
Well, he's pretty much the kid on the block if you talk about Larry Walford and Terry Walford and all of those guys that have been around for many, many years on the V8 scene. And Julian doesn't need to stand back for any of them whatsoever. Very effective out there on main circuit, and he's also proven to be pretty deft at iRacing in terms of endurance as well. And he's done pretty well with that for every time that he's been out on circuit, and he now finds himself in that 5th position. But once again, I have to ask the question. Troy Dolanchik led out from Leighton Ferry for 50 odd minutes. 3 seconds difference all of a sudden, and it was only 2 laps difference between Leighton Ferry coming in and Troy Dolanchik coming in. Somewhere along the line, Leighton found 3 seconds on Troy. Was it the entrance and exit to the pits, or was it the actual standing time? Very difficult. Well, let's have a look at the actual standing time that there was between them, and we can see Leighton Ferry at 31.2, 33.5 for Troy Dolanchik. There's your answer. 2.3 seconds was the difference in how long they were standing still in the pit area.
Jason Coetzee just got his nose ahead there of Gerald Ferry. So Jason Coetzee is busy working his way in the Mint Rapworks car, also part of Durant Motorsport. Busy working his way through the field. Remember, he came to pit on lap number 4, and not quite sure what happened out there to him. And with all the pit stops going down, he is just out of the top 10, 11.9 behind Zach Forster. But Gary, I think because he pitted that early, he's going to have to pit again. I cannot possibly see that he's going to make the full race, the full hour and a half after pitting on lap number 4.
Yeah, I also don't see that one. I think he's going to have to go for another stop. And having had a look through the additional information that we have on the SDK system, the upgraded version of the SDK system alongside what we use in iRacing, there wasn't any incidents that showed for Jason at all. So I don't know if he maybe had contact with somebody on the circuit. The computer then doesn't pick it up. Because it's contact on the circuit, you haven't gone outside of the restraints of the driving area as such, and maybe that affected the wheel alignment or something or other, because there must have been a good reason for him to go in. It wouldn't have just been by the by that he would have gone in. Rounding out the top 15, Sandro Beccari.
Yeah, and he's having a lovely fight there with a man ahead of him. That is at Peter Hubert. There's just under 7/10 of a second between the two of them. Peter in P14, Sandro in P15, and they're going one on one with each other. The Audi and the Ferrari, that's the two cars you see there on your shot. And ahead of them, a bit higher up in P6, Mitchell got his nose ahead of De Nobrega, but he is not pulling away from Tristan De Nobrega. He's keeping him pretty honest. There's 6/10 of a second between the two of them, fighting it out there for P6 and 7.
Well, Tristan De Nobrega still one up. He started in 8th, got his way up to 5th. He's slowly but surely been overhauled and has dropped down to 7th, but still one up, and that then ahead of Umpi Swart. So Umpi Swart finds himself just a little bit further back. Have all the big hitters been into the pits? I think so.
Let's have a look and see. As yeah, they've all made their pit stops, except people like JJ van der Merwe and Leon van Wyk. That has made 2 of them, and as I said, I do believe that Jason could steer. Oh, I said lap 4, it was lap 3, so it was close enough. I think that Jason could steer definitely is going to have to make another pit stop.
So basically from lap 23 to lap 26 is when most of the guys went in. So that's only a 3-lap window as such. So it was obviously a pretty tight one. There wasn't a very small window that you could use. Just for interest sake, something completely different. Highest speeds achieved by anybody out there, and that's when you get a perfect run out of a corner. Jason could steer. I see you pointing to that, Frankie. 265.
And Sander Bakari, 265. Yeah. That's the one that I was actually pointing at.
Oh, Raymond Duggan, 269. And Leon van Wyk, 270. But that must be obviously when you're sitting in a queue of 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 cars, and you pick up a good run out of the corner and a massive slipstream, and that's what makes the difference as they work their way through. So, Canvas Intelligence, our sponsor, 30 laps into the second year production of round number 3 of the Motorsport South Africa iRacing South Africa 2023 series. 60,000 rands worth of prize money on it. Leighton Fourie, having shadowed Troy Dolanchik for a long time, pulls 2.4 seconds in the pit stop, somehow gets to the front end of the field. He proved that he can sit in the slipstream of Troy Dolanchik. Can Troy close up on the back of Leighton and do a reverse? We're going to find out in the next 30 minutes.
Talking about Jason Kutsia, he's back in the pits again. I said he was not going to make it, and he is back in the pit lane once again, and that's going to cost him dearly. He's going to drop down that leaderboard.
So Luke Lucchesi, not that far behind Luke King. He's in the top 4. He's got a bit of space behind him right now from choosing from the RS. But we know that Luke Lucchesi can be very, very quick in the RDSA, the Race Driver SA sponsored car. And he's also part of Pantera Racing, one of the very quickest seniors in iRacing in South Africa. And in fact, he was the man that was going to put together the next international V8 touring car race for us, Frankie. We've had one so far.
Yes, we've had one where we took on Team New Zealand in the V8 supercars. That's the Ford Mustangs and the Holden Commodores, and hopefully we can get a return against these guys somewhere in 2023. However, Sander Bakari is sitting up there in that 14th position, 7/10 of a second behind Peter Hubert. That's the 2 cars that's working their way around. They are just heading out of the carousel, working their way through the kink, and then dropping down into that slight left-hander that's going through Kettle Bottoms, and then working their way into Canada Corner. And from there they'll work their way through turn 13 A and B, and then into the final right-hander that will be turn 14.
Let's talk a bit about the man that we're watching there on screen, riding on board with Sander Bakari, looking at Peter Hubert. He's been pretty much the success story of Masters, the Sports and GT Masters for the beginning of 2023, and he's posted some of his best results to date in 2023 in the Masters.
Yeah, he's been doing pretty well and improving all the time. And talking about that, look at Luke Lucchesi, 0.8 of a second between himself and Luke King. That's what it looks like. That's what 0.8 of a second looks like between Lucchesi and King. And just ahead of them in P2, you see Troy Dolanchik. He's 1.4 ahead there of Luke King. He's a Dolanchik as we ride aboard here with the Porsche of Luke Lucchesi.
Let's watch the gears as he works his way through the flat foot in 5th gear. Just hold it. You can see the 2 red dots in the middle, pops up. He goes up into 6th gear. How many gears are we going to go down from 6th to 5th to 4th to 3rd to 2nd? That's a long way down the box. Use everything on the outside. You can see they've dug a hole on the end of that runoff area. Up into 4th over the blind rise, playing with that accelerator. Now just touch it on the outside, the late apex of the corner. Use a bit of the grass and the curbstone on the outside. Get a good run and try and close up on the likes of Luke King. Just outside of DRS, just more than a second.
If there was a DRS, yes.
I'm sure he wishes there was.
I think a lot of them earlier on that was in that train would have loved to have had something like DRS. But yes, if you have a look just behind the two of them, in P6, Mitchell is still ahead there of the Nobriga, and he did get his nose through, but unlike Lucchese and Familiaris that pulled away there from the Nobriga, Byron Mitchell is not getting away from him. He is keeping him very honest indeed. He's the Nobriga, and only 3.2 seconds behind him in that 8th position. There you see him come out of that right-hander is the Ferrari of Yuri Swart.
Now, he was one of the very first guys that actually went into the pits, and he was down in 16th position at that stage of the fight. Remember, the standing time around about 32 to 34 seconds is in general your standing time in the pits to do a fuel up and the 4 tires. Everybody going for the 4 tires as well. You saw the cars go up onto the jacks and drop down. That indicates that they've taken new rubber, and most everybody inside a 4-lap window. 32 laps in 1 hour 6. It's running out of time at this stage of the fight for Troy Dolenchik. Troy Dolenchik that dominated the first part of this race, and in a likewise vehicle in front of him is Leighton Ferree. So the Sujin Properties man is under a bit of pressure now because he's not closing on Leighton, and in fact Leighton slowly but surely starting to get away. Does that mean that he paced himself behind Troy Dolenchik and he's got a little extra in the bag? It's possible. But he's also got to keep tabs on what's going on behind him, because that man, Luke King, is right in the game as well in the Dotsoft BMW.
Yeah, but he must watch out, because Lucchese, that is in P4, is only 1.2 behind him, and then Julian Familiaris is there. Then they've got a back marker, that is Leon van Wyk. The next man on the lead lap is this man, Byron Mitchell, and he's been hassled there by Tristan de Nobriga. De Nobriga only 0.6 of a second behind him. There is Yuri Swart, 3.4 behind the Mitchell-de Nobriga combination. Then Johan Ferree is 11 seconds behind Yuri Swart, but not too far behind him. There you see is the Monster Energy Mercedes-Benz of Zach Foster, only 2.7 behind Johan Ferree.
That rounds out the top 10. Then Gerald Ferree, he's the father of Leighton Ferree. They find themselves in 10 positions between himself and his son. He's ahead of Chase Herald. Chase is slowly but surely getting away from Pity Hubert. Sandro Bakari holding sway with Pity Hubert at this stage of the fight. Noor Hendricks having got past Peter van der Spey. He's gotten past Graham Stephen now as well, so he's getting himself into a pretty decent position. There's Graham Stephen. I don't think he's having too much fun today. We would have expected him to be a bit higher, but just not on that same pace. Captain Peter van der Spey, probably one of the oldest drivers out there, a man that flies golf jets around the world for a living, and Captain Pete in that 17th position. I've actually had a chance to ride on his rig in his man cave up in the top end of Cape Town, in the northern section there up against the mountain, next to the salt and pepper pot. And he's got a lovely man cave up in the premises that he's got, and a beautiful view looking out over Cape Town. So he's sitting and in his rig, and if he looks past the rig, he's got a beautiful view looking out over Cape Town.
Well, I don't think he's looking at that view
Not
right now. He is trying to focus there on Graham Stephen, but he's 6.2 seconds behind him. Janeman Prius sits there in 18th. He's nearly 18 seconds behind Peter van der Spey, and then 3.1 behind him is the Raymond Duggan car. Then we've got Andrew Thomas, that's just behind Raymond Duggan, and then in 22nd position is Jason Kutsia, and remember that he had to make 2 pit stops. Then 8.3 behind him is Stephen Cakebread in that number 65 car, and he's been hassled there by JJ van der Merwe, 0.6 of a second between the two of them. And then Leon van Wyk, who is in between all the front runners, he sits there in 25th.
We see Jacques Botha has retired the car. He's 6 laps down. Stephen Duplessis, he's also out of it. John T. Weiss that had that incident right near the beginning of the event, and he's eventually decided that he's going to park it. It's not going to go any further. He hasn't clicked out of the system. That's why it shows he's still sitting in the pits. Willem Botha, and then Dario Busi. Well, that man is a brilliant racing driver out on circuit. He's very good with this. He's actually decided he's not going to be racing main circuit this year because he is studying, but putting in a couple of iRaces here and there.
Yeah, I think the last time he raced competitively was in 2020, and then he stopped. That's when he became the Volkswagen Polo Cup champion, and he hasn't raced competitively since then. But let's go back up to that front group of cars. Here's Familiaris. He sits there in that 5th position, and he's 2.1 behind Luke Lucchesi. Leighton Fourie, 2 seconds ahead of Dolacek of Troy. That's there in that 2nd position, and hassling him is Luke King. There's a second between the two of them. There's 1.1 between King and Lucchesi. That's there in P3 and 4. Then there's 2 seconds between Lucchesi and Familiaris. That's in that 5th position. And then 11 seconds before we get to Byron Mitchell. And Mitchell's... Sorry, Gary, yes?
Surprising that Byron hasn't been able to run the pace. But now, have a look where the Audis are. Byron Mitchell, then it's Pieter Joubert down in 13th. And we know how quick Pieter Joubert is. He's been blindingly quick in the Sports and GT Masters. Graham Stephen, who should also be a lot higher up, down in 16th. I'm going to predict, be I right or wrong, that the Audi is not really the right car for this specific circuit. I'm not saying it's the wrong car. I'm saying it doesn't suit this circuit as well as the BMWs, and then a toss-up between the Porsche and the Ferrari.
Yeah, and then with the Mercs, we've got Zach Foster in P10. We've got JJ van der Merwe in P24. And then we've got a retirement of Jacques Botha. And they are the only 3 Mercedes-Benz cars out there, which 2 of them are currently on track.
2 people that are not where we would expect them to be. Johan Fourie.
Yes, Johan in P9, 11.7 behind Umpi Swart. And they are both Ferraris. That is Umpi Swart. He's got a certain gift there in the sense that he has got that 11, nearly 12 second buffer between himself and Fourie. That's there in P9 as Yuri busy works his way around. And here's De Nobrega, P7. And as I said earlier on, Mitchell not getting away from De Nobrega.
No, not at all. But I mean, Byron Mitchell is a very deft racing driver in general. He's proven that he can drive most anything. And we've also found that he's pretty consistent with the 6-hour races, which, as we told you earlier on, is going to become 4-hour races. We only got around about 16 minutes to go. Can you believe it? 90 minutes going very quickly. So the choice of cars that you make for the season, you have to continue with those cars for the balance of the season. And in the words of Luke Lucchesi, you're going to win some on the swings and you're going to lose some on the roundabouts.
Well, that's what it's all about. You choose a car, and some circuits the car works for you, some circuits the car don't work for you. For the BMWs in P1, 2 and 3, this track is working very, very nicely as Yuri Swart sits out there. He did a 2:04.795 was Umpi's last lap in that 8th position, and he's nearly 3 seconds behind De Nobrega. That's there in P7, and he is still only 7/10 of a second behind the man in P6, namely Byron Mitchell.
90 minutes, a long time when you're right on the edge. Do you think that there will be a little bit of fatigue that will come into play? We might see some
mental fatigue, maybe, yes, because an hour and a half is long.
But then again, a lot of these, well, it's a lot of youngsters here for Luke Lucchesi. A lot of them are race driver fit as such. So I think from a mental point of view, being top racers on the main circuit will help them from the mental point of view to keep yourself completely plugged in. But then again, when you've got same and similar quality all around you, it's not easy to go and shine because they're all just as good as what you are. And in that, I'm talking the top 10.
But then a lot of these youngsters also do iRacing 24-hour. in endurance races. So yeah, they are pretty plugged into the iRacing scene and the real-time racing scene. No more than this man, Yuri Swart, who also took part last year in the Polar Cup, and a young man that's very good in karting, and also extremely well in GTI Challenge racing in Cape Town. As Zak Foster goes through, guess what? The DRS board.
Yeah, makes you wonder about my DRS board. So Zak Foster, the man that's taken over the endurance series, the regional 6-hour endurance, and he's the man that's heading that one up. He actually did quite a bit of homework because he wasn't 100% happy with the number of entries that he was getting for the endurance races. Did a bit of homework, did some more homework, did some more homework on top of that, came up with a couple of options, asked a lot of questions, and said, okay guys, what's going to work for us now is going to be a situation where we do 4-hour races.
Luke King, look at this. Luke King has caught up to the back end of Troy Dolacek. There they go into that left-hander. That is P3, busy working its way around, and he is right there on the case of Dolacek, and Dolacek has actually got a little bit more closer to Leighton Fourie. There's just under 1.5 seconds between the two of them, and Luke King is saying, listen here, Leighton and Troy, you're not the only two BMWs in the top 3. I'm here as well, and if anybody's going to make your life difficult, Mr. Dolacek, it's going to be me, as they work their way through the carousel towards the King.
Yep, as we're coming towards the end of this race, and there's only 13 minutes left for these guys out there on circuit, and I personally think that where they are right now is where they are probably going to end their races.
Well, it's still very much on for that second position, and very much on for that 6th position, and for P13 for that matter. So you could be right, but as long as these guys are within a second of each other, it will stay yellow, which means there's always a possibility that those positions could change. We'll have to look and see. We're not done yet.
Well, it's, as I say, it's not over till the fat lady sings. So going from the top down, let's have a look at our star performers of today. Leighton Fourie leading them out, and I don't believe Troy Dolacek's going to be able to catch him. Troy Dolacek, Luke King, Luke Lucchese, and Julian Familiaris. That's the stars in this game, because at the end of the day, they have taken the game to the next level. Coming up behind the back marker, Byron Mitchell saying to Leon van Wyk, please, I've got a guy behind me who's desperately wanting to get past. His name's Tristan de Nobrega. I can't get stuck behind you.
And I got Yuri Swart behind him as well. There's only 2.5 seconds between Tristan and Yuri, so you've got to get out the way so that I can come through. Leon van Wyk sitting in that 25th position, and he's the meat in the sandwich between all of these top runners. Once again, Byron keeps on flashing that Audi R8's lights with that V10 power plant, and he's saying to the man in that Porsche, move right out of my way, because I am being hassled here by de Nobrega.
Well, he does exactly that, and he moves out of the way and lets them go through. Well done, Leon van Wyk, down in a 25th position. And, well, that is the right way to do it. I see John T. Weiss is still in the pits, and with that little passing maneuver that you saw there, that is the way that the guys have got now in terms of a bit of respect for one another, making sure that everybody is exactly in a decent situation where they can have a fair chance at doing well in the series.
Yeah, that's Van Wyk in the being IT Porsche. He is a lap down to the two cars ahead of him, namely Mitchell and de Nobrega, fighting it out for that 6th position. That's the in-car cam of the de Nobrega Porsche, and he will see that Audi R8 of Mitchell right there with him, under braking his sails in there. Those two exhaust pipes between those rear lights are staring into the eyes of Tristan de Nobrega.
Well, keep in mind that Byron Mitchell and his dad are the people that do the preparation on the Captain Peter van der Spy vehicle that they're using to do the endurance races around South Africa for this year. So Peter van der Spy, although he's a long way further down, he will have keen interest in what Byron Mitchell is doing out there.
Yeah, the Mitchells of Dolphin Engineering, and of course Byron's dad, Gordon, heading up that lot, as he is ahead. Is Byron of Tristan at this point in time, but still Luke King has not given up on that second, or that possible second position of Dolacek, as we are approaching 9 minutes left on the clock.
Well,
I nearly said 19.
Yeah, sure. Well, we spoke about, oh, look at that, a little jink towards the outside. We spoke about Tristan, the train driver, de Nobrega. Well, he had a whole battle with a whole line of cars behind him, having started in 8th, gone up to 5th position, and then he had them racked, packed, and stacked. He's now the man that's putting the pressure on at this stage of the fight, and in 7th position in there behind Byron Mitchell with 1 hour 21. That's already down. 39 times they've gone around this circuit already. Tristan de Nobrega very close onto the back end there of Byron Mitchell. Byron Mitchell's got a year and a day in front of him to get up to Julian from the RS. Julian won't be worried about what's happening behind him. His interest is going to be trying to put a bit of pressure on Luke Lekisi and try and force the champ into a mistake.
Well, that's the only one of 2 fights. Well, there's 3 fights out there. There's one for 19th between Murray and Kutsia, but the 2 that we are interested in is Dolacek King and Mitchell de Nobrega. That's the 2 at this point in time that we are focusing on, with 1.6 between Fourie and Dolacek, and Leighton was the quickest man out there between himself and Dolacek, but Luke King last lap was a 2:04.6. Julian was a 2:04.5. That sits there in P5, 1.5 behind Lucchesi. So you know what, 1.7 seconds, 1.5 seconds, it's not much. It's a blink of an eye, and you are through, and you are just over a second behind the guy ahead of you. But trust me, 1.5, 1.3 seconds, it's virtually as good as being just under a second.
Frankly, the reason why I'm staying with this shot, if you look very closely, you would have seen as they came through the last corner, there was obviously left foot braking going down by Byron Mitchell as he was going just past the apex of the corner, and you could see that there was some additional braking, left foot braking, painting some black stripes as he comes out of the corner. So let's just keep an eye on those brakes. Oh, there you can see he was on the brakes a second time as they came into the tighter part of that. So that's the indicator. Ooh, on the edge of the curbstone with 1 hour 23 that's gone. There's no doubt that's left foot braking going down by Byron Mitchell.
Well, all of a sudden in P14, here's a fight between Sander Bakari and Graham Stephen. And Graham Stephen, that's got away from Noah Hendricks. He's right on the case there of Sander Bakari. So the 2 of them are having a lovely fight. Never mind the top 10. There's a couple of fights going on a bit further down for 14th position. And then there's one between Andrew Thomas and Jason Kutsia. But this is a good one. Oh, Sander Bakari getting that Ferrari out of line. Pressure there from Graham Stephen.
Yep. And Sandro's pushing it to the limit. You'll probably find, and they're flashing the lights, Graham saying, yeah, carry on, go and make those mistakes. I want your position. There's only 5 minutes, 45 seconds to go.
And diving around behind him there is Graham Stephen, trying to force Sander Bakari into some kind of a mistake there. But at this point in time, it's not going to happen. Not too far behind them is Noah Hendricks. There you just saw the black Ferrari come into view. Noah Hendricks, he's 3 seconds behind the 2 of them, and if they bog each other down a bit, that will bring Hendricks into play, and then it will be a 3-way fight.
Remember, it was Peter van der Spey that was ahead of Noah Hendricks for the better part of 25-30 minutes. Then Noah Hendricks managed to get past Peter van der Spey, and now he's slowly but surely taking a bit of a gap out of Peter van der Spey as well. But I must say, for the amount of time that Peter's had to be on the rig recently, having been out of Cape Town for a lot of time, I don't think he had that much time to practice and I think he's doing pretty well as one of the oldest drivers out there in that 17th position, and ahead of the highly regarded Raymond Duggan, who's not had a pretty happy day to date.
Yeah, Janneman Prius and Duncan Murray having a little scrap down there at the tail end of the field for 21 and 22. P21 and P22, there you see them. That is Duncan Murray in the Ferrari, and he's 3/10 of a second behind Janneman Prius in that BMW. So, little fight, and Prius gets it wrong. And they are side by side, and Duncan Murray darts around the outside of Janneman Prius and moves up into P21.
Is that a sign of a little bit of lack of concentration? 90 minutes in?
Touch of pressure, I think.
Just a little bit. The Chevrolet NTT bridge, they go through underneath that. 1 hour and 26 gone. It's coming down to the line now. And I do believe that if Troy Dolenchik has got an answer, it's going to be now. He's going to have to go for Leighton, because Leighton is coming up behind a bit of traffic, and there's only 2.5 laps to go.
Well, Dolenchik cannot afford to go after Fourie. He's going to defend that second position, because there's 0.5 of a second between himself and Luke King that is there in that third position, and never ever right off Luke Lucchese. He's 2 seconds behind them, and only 1.7 behind Lucchese is Familiaris. So if you are Troy Dolenchik with approaching 3 minutes, I don't think you're going to worry too much at this point in time about Leighton Fourie, and rather keep King and Lucchese behind you and defend that second position.
I think that Troy Dolenchik will be a bit disappointed. I mean, how do you be disappointed with a second position when you're riding against the top 40 iRacers in South Africa? But having dominated the first part of the race, and then the change-up happening with the pit stop, be it, well, we know the standing time, there was 2.3 seconds difference between the two of them, but there was 3.2 seconds difference at the time that they both ended up back out on circuit after their one pit stop. So I think Troy Dolenchik will rue the fact that it just didn't go in his favor at that stage of the fight, and he has not been able to close the gap to Leighton Fourie. Leighton was able to hold on to him through the traffic. They're going to come now. Oh, Janneman Prius. They just work their way past Janneman Prius, the Sujin Properties, second position. Troy Dolenchik, that's desperately trying to get onto the back of Leighton Fourie, but he's running out of time fast. There's only 2 more minutes to go, and they are coming out into the front main.
Yeah, out of turn 14, they come up the main straight, and King is right there. As a matter of fact, those back markers has actually cost Leighton Fourie, because Dolenchik finds himself now under a second behind him, and he was faster on that last lap. Was Dolenchik there what Fourie was? As a matter of fact, so was Luke King, and for that matter, Familiaris as well. So all of a sudden, with 1.5 minutes left on the clock, it is a fight between Fourie, Dolenchik and King for first, second and third, as time is now beginning to run out.
Yeah, it's running out pretty fast. I think they're going to get probably just one more lap in after the 28.4. Yeah, I think they're going to have to probably do one more lap. I don't think, although this might be the last lap. So let's go back to the leader, Leighton Fourie. Is he going to get to the start-finish line before the 1 minute 30 is up? I think so. I think he's going to be there before the time is up, and I think this could be the last lap for Leighton Fourie.
Well, he's got, 45 seconds now to get to the checkered flag, so it could possibly be the last lap for him, which means a checkered flag would come out for all of them. Busy working his way under the Speedville Bridge into the carousel. Goes Leighton Fourie, goes Troy Dolenchik and Luke King. The three of them working their way out the carousel, going through the kink, dropping down Kettle Bottoms and heading towards Canada Dry. There is the man in P4, Luke Lucchese. He put a lap there on Duncan Murray. Here comes Familiaris, and he's going to put a lap on Murray, or maybe not, because the time is running out. Yes, we have got, 5 seconds to go, Gaza. So this will be the flag lap for Leighton Fourie.
Wow, and it's been an amazing run for him. There's no doubt about it. Leighton Fourie and Troy Dolenchik, two of the young guns in South African motorsport that have really made name for themselves as they come up towards the line.
Let's have a look and see will the checkered flag come out. Yep, yeah. And Leighton Fourie comes home in P1. Right on his case is Troy Dolenchik, followed by Luke King.
Well, I tell you, Luke King will be pretty chuffed with that. Luke Lucchese will be pretty chuffed with that. He's the first of the Otokies that's coming through. And then a little bit further back, here comes Byron Mitchell. And he ends up just ahead of Tristan de Nobrega that started in 8th and ended in 7th. There comes Umbi Swart in that 8th position. Johan Fourie not been able to close that gap, but still inside of the top 10. Still a good result for him.
Yeah, and of course, Julian finished there in that 5th position. So here comes Johan Fourie towards the line, and he is 16, 17 seconds behind Umpi in P9, and right on his case is the Monster Energy Mercedes-Benz of Zak Foster.
Gerald Fourie that dropped eventually just outside of the top 10. He finds himself in 11th position, and he was kept pretty honest all day long by that man there, Chase Herald.
Yeah, Chasey finishing in that 12th position. Then Peter Hubert will finish in P13 in the Pennzoil Audi, and he's nearly 7 seconds behind Herald. And then Graham Stephen in the Gulf colored Audi will cross the line. Noah Hendricks will get to the flag, and guess what? He will get ahead of Sandro Bakari. So he got ahead of Sandro towards the end.
Yep, and there comes Peter van der Spy in 17th position, and he'll be pretty chuffed with that one. Raymond Duggan, oopsie. Yeah, that was pretty interesting stuff. And him and Jason could see that they're very, very close. Was Jason could see it just ahead of him?
No, just got ahead of him there, did Jason, on the last lap.
Yeah, so that was pretty interesting stuff. Let's go one position further forward. There we go. There comes Jason Kutsia, and he had 2 pit stops. Just about everybody else had 1. He was very much on the pace. It's just that initial pit stop just blew him out of the water completely. Jason Kutsia from Raymond Duggan. Andrew Thomas, who initially was looking very good, the next man to come through behind that.
And he is the last man on the lead lap. He's Andrew Thomas. Duncan Murray and everybody else 1 lap down or more.
Canvas Intelligence from Road America. And, well, that was how the qualifying was Troy Dolenchik from Leighton Fourie, Luke King, Jacques Botha, and Jason Kutsia that was in that 5th position. And how did it end up? Well, at the end of the day, this is how it ended up. Leighton Fourie beating out there on Troy Dolenchik from Luke King, Luke Lucchese, and Julian from the RS. That 5 clocked out at the front end, and look at the amount of points that they're going to pick up.
Yeah, a heap of points for these guys. Then Byron Mitchell managed to stay ahead of Tristan de Nobrega, followed there by Yuri Swart, Johan Fourie, and Zak Foster. Gerald Fourie and Chase Herald round off the top dozen.
Yep, then Peter Hubert from Graham Stephen, Noor Hendricks, Sandro Bakari, Captain Peter van der Spy, Jason Kutsia, Raymond Duggan, and Andrew Thomas, all of them on the lead lap, and Andrew Thomas in 20th being the last person to pick up points in this one. So that's what it's all about, getting the result at the end of the day. 90 minutes, Canvas Intelligence, MSA GT3 Series for 2023. 4 weeks from now, Frankie will be back with the next round. A closing word from your side. What a brilliant series.
Yeah, the next round will be, of course, the Porsche Cup. That will be next week, Wednesday.
Yep.
We'll have the Porsche Cup, and then we'll go back to the iRacing Master Series. So, yeah, it's been good. It's been real. My bad luck would go, for whatever reason, I don't know what went wrong, but my bad luck award would go to Jason Kutsia.
Yeah, I think so. If it wasn't for that additional pit stop. Remember, at one stage, he even had the fastest lap as well. So, bad luck, yeah. Hardest trier, I think Leighton Fourie. He just thought his way through this one. Sat behind Troy Dolenchik, eventually chopped him when it was in and out of the pits, and just kept it nice and smooth. Luke King, you would expect to see him there. Luke Lucchese, you would expect to see him there. Julian, Byron, definitely. Tristan, I think, will be a little bit disappointed in the Race Driver SA Esports entry. If he had just a little bit more pace, I think he could have found himself a little bit further forward.
Another driver that deserves a mention for bad luck would be Jacques Botha, with the
Yes.
Mercedes-Benz. He was in that top 10, round about P7, 8, and at the end of the day, he wasn't classified as a finisher. However, that is the GT3 Series, and we look forward to the Porsche Cup next Wednesday.
On behalf of Frankie Innes, the voice to Questionless Motorsport, myself, Gary Fleming, it's been an honor and a pleasure to be here with you, and we look forward to seeing you next week, Wednesday, for the next round of South African iRacing.
And have a happy Easter weekend, everybody. Goodbye.
iRacing is a sim racing game that combines a true-to-life racing experience with an online community of virtual racers from all around the globe. iRacing offers a multitude of officially licensed cars and tracks, laser scanned with millimeter accuracy. Their car models and mechanical systems are based on real-world physics, engineered in cooperation with manufacturers and race teams. Their skill license system ranges from rookie to pro, ensuring members are always pitted against those with similar skill sets. Members are able to sign up for a weekly race series, compete in time trials, host a private race with friends, and participate in racing leagues created and run by the community. With over 170,000 members, iRacing works in partnership with renowned motorsports organizations like NASCAR to deliver virtual races based on the real-life NASCAR Cup Series, as well as many other series on the NASCAR ladder. iRacing also features team racing, providing a variety of options for members to create and manage their own teams. Race with friends or real-world teammates in full-length endurance events like the 24 Hours of Daytona, Spa 24, or the Bathurst 12 Hour. Additional partners include IMSA, World of Outlaws, Supercars, and IndyCar, allowing members to race in their very own Indianapolis 500, Bathurst 1000, Chili Bowl, and many more iconic events. This is iRacing, delivering the most authentic racing experience short of getting into a real race car. Sign up today at iRacing.com.